welcome to the Diversity Rocks podcast brought to you by Orange Orchid, where our mission is that we are striving for everybody in work and society to feel like they belong. We also like to disrupt the system. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Nitin Sharma. Hi, Nitin. Just in case you don't know who I am, my name is Liz Critchley. I'm the CEO and founder of Orange Orchid, and I am a white woman in my very late 40s with shoulder length blonde hair with a fringe, and today I have glasses on and a black and white stripy top. Nitin, you're very welcome to be on the podcast. Thanks for coming along. So
Thank you
tell us
for
a bit
inviting
about
me.
yourself. What's your origin story?
Oh, what's my origin story? Oh, hi guys, I'm Nitin, founder of a platform called rectools.io, a job board called RecCircle, and I'm most known for my recruitment industry podcast, which is called RecTalk. RecTalk is now officially the largest podcast in the recruitment industry, with over 45,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're a top 15% Spotify podcast. So we seem to be doing something right. What's my origin story? I'm the son of two immigrant parents from India who came over in the 70s and worked several low-paying jobs and so on and so forth to put me and my siblings through school, college, university, as a lot of people in my generation had to go through. I'm a dad of two beautiful young girls. I married my childhood sweetheart 10 years ago. We've known each other since early secondary school, got together towards the end of secondary school, and haven't looked back since. I am British Asian and I have a very greying beard. I'm going to be 40 next year, and I have, I wouldn't say shoulder length, and dare I say nipple length long hair.
That's okay. You have luscious locks, I would say.
Appreciate you. I appreciate you. I'm sat here today in a black hoodie that's representing a brand that's really important to me, which is Boys Get Sad Too.
Oh, I've seen those. I love those
Yes.
tops.
Yeah,
Well
I wear
done.
them on pretty much every podcast now.
Yeah, that's great. And so tell us, so Nitin and I, we met, didn't we, at an Erupt Disrupt event some while ago now. And I think our businesses and our approach and our way of doing things is quite similar in that, I know you really like to act as a catalyst for change and revolutionize the way that organizations do things, particularly from a recruitment perspective. So I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about that. What does that look like in practice, Nitin?
Yeah, so I've worked in recruitment for over 10 years. I noticed a lot of things that didn't necessarily, not that didn't sit right with me, but just things that I thought were a little bit dated in terms of concepts, right? It's very much a boys' club. Women and people of color only get so far in their careers. For most PLC recruitment businesses, the leadership team are usually middle-aged white men. And so I found it challenging to stay in that corporate environment, not to mention, not only because of that, but actually because my personality just doesn't fit, right? I have an ongoing diagnosis of ADHD going on at the moment, which explains an awful lot to myself and my wife. But I just think that there was change needed, and it's you got to start somewhere, right? So I'm really passionate about sort of driving the right sort of behaviors. My motto is that you do all the right things, the money will come. If you
Mhm.
focus on the revenue, then you end up doing the wrong things. And so that's kind of my main driver. People are people outside of work. For some reason, in the working environment, we expect them to behave and operate as machines, and that just didn't sit right with me. So everything I do, all the projects I'm involved in, all the products that I have sort of taken to market and due to take to market, they're all centered around allowing people to be people in their own unique way. And I have a real strong kind of viewpoint on if you take the financial metric away, do you describe what you went through in the last 3, 4 years as successful? I certainly do. Have I made more money? Yeah, historically, of course I have. But I've done some pretty incredible, amazing things that I never thought I'd ever be able to do in the last sort of 3 years. And that's because of, I think, my mentality of driving that change.
Excellent. And tell us what that looks like for organizations when you have been supporting organizations recruiting the top talent. What does that look like from an inclusivity point of view? Because it's hot topics at the moment in terms of what's going on in the States with diversity and
Hmm.
inclusion
Hmm.
and targets, and there's a lot of talk about targeting certain types of people to come into the organization, and recruitment is an obvious place
Yeah.
to start for that. And there's some backlash now about are the right people getting the jobs because of these targets. I wonder, tell us a little bit about your experience and what works best, and what would you be talking to organizations
I
about
think
doing?
it, I think language is really important, right? And when you weaponize certain language, it
Mm,
becomes a problem. Diversity is absolutely important in any organization, not just to tick a box or to say that, hey, we hire diverse people, right? Certain people, yes, might be better suited to certain vacancies and certain positions, but by the same light, opportunities should not be taken away from people because of prejudice or a lack of understanding, right? The issue I find in the corporate world is that there becomes this almost need to fill a quota to be when you start targeting people. This was the point about the revenue, right? Do
yes.
all the right things, the revenue comes. Chase
Hmm.
the revenue, you may end up doing the wrong things. Same thing with these targets. So if you're trying to hit diversity targets because you're trying to tick a box to the government or to a reporting media that says, hey, we are a diverse organization, you end up doing the wrong things and the wrong people get hired and the wrong people miss out on opportunities because all you're trying to do is say we need proportionally speaking, this many people of mixed race, this many people of the LGBT community, this many people with physical disabilities that are visible. But in doing so, you end up hiring people for the sake of it rather than for the right reasons. One of the projects I've launched recently is a job board called RecCircle, and the idea with RecCircle is that it's the world's first fully anonymous job board within the recruitment industry.
Ah.
If I'm a recruitment consultant and I'm trying to find a job, I don't have to put in anything short of my email address, and I can create my profile based on my skills, my experience, and my billables. So the money that I've made in what sector and the type of work that I do. Because I know from experience that Nitin Sharma isn't necessarily going to get picked out at the top of a CV pile, but Nick Sharma will. And I used to go by Nick Sharma for many, many years for that very reason, right? I know that somebody with a West African name is less likely to have their CV opened or their application opened than somebody with a Westernized name, right? And then there's certain sectors where I've witnessed it within the recruitment world where recruitment business owners will actively go out to hire a attractive young blonde girl because that fits their clients better. And so for me, RecCircle was a way of eliminating that bias. If you want to hire a truly good recruiter who can then demonstrate through their billables and their experience what they're able to do, it shouldn't matter whether they are black, white, Asian. It shouldn't matter whether they're a man, woman, or transgender or whatever. It shouldn't matter at all because what you're hiring is the right person for the job. And that
Mhm.
was the concept in my head behind it, based on years of experiencing both sides. I know that I've been selected for speaking opportunities and ahead of other people who probably have just as important stuff to talk about that I do. But it ticks a diversity box. You're a brown man in a heavy a white dominated business environment. So we'll put you on stage because that makes us look good. And then when
Mhm.
I go on and they go, oh, actually, shit, I did have something good to say as well. That just tends to
Yeah.
help, right?
Hey.
But I've experienced both sides. I can't say that I've spent my
Yeah.
entire life experiencing racism. I've also had the positive sides of this diversity drive that seems
Yeah.
to be prevalent.
And I
Um,
wonder, because when I work with organizations, one of the things I would say is make sure you do have good representation. And we hear a lot about allyship. So if you were a man being asked to talk on a panel, do you ever look and say, well, are there any women on this panel? If you were a white person, would you look and say, this is all white people, I'm not speaking on a panel? So it's really difficult, isn't it?
It's
Because
a
on the
funny
one
one because
hand,
I never did that before, right? But the
yeah.
last two big recruitment agency expos that I've been asked to host a live panel podcast on stage with, I've intentionally gone out of my way to find a diverse group for my panel. And that's not because of that's not because of I'm going, oh, this is important to me, but more because of the fear of backlash. And I think that's really telling as well. Because
Hmm.
what I wouldn't want people doing is going, oh, well, you only put a certain type of people on stage with you. And the fear of that was what drove me to go, well, I need representation on both sides. And I think that's wrong. And I've got a lot of learning to take from that.
It's interesting. And particularly in terms of, I always think a lot about the business case for diversity and inclusion versus the fairness case.
Mm.
And actually, people don't want to be selected because of the color of their skin or their ability or their gender. They want to be selected because they're the best person, or in your case, on
Yeah.
a podcast, the most interesting person, the most relevant person. And yet, there are lots of studies that show that having diversity creates innovation and et cetera, et cetera. So I wonder sometimes whether it is about intent and language and how these things are perceived. It's a very nuanced debate to have, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a funny one, right? Because I've seen it with my own children. My children are mixed race, and they depending on the day of the week, they will like either identify themselves as Indian or as white British. But color doesn't play a part in their decision making at all until a certain age, and it's almost it's sad to see, but I think we've got a lot to learn from that too, because actually it doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's a really a, a famous clip from Morgan Freeman when they ask him about how he feels about Black History Month and things like that, and they ask him, well, how do we stop racism then? And he was like, well, we stop talking about it. I stop referring to you as a white woman, and you stop referring to me as an Indian man. That's how we stop it, because
Yeah.
it shouldn't matter whether you are who you are, Liz, not you're a white woman called Liz. And that for me is I think the bit that we will forever struggle with. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to sit there and think, right, I've got a panel, I want one woman, one black, one white, I need this, I need. I shouldn't have to think like that. What I should be thinking is, right, I've got an opportunity to talk about a really interesting topic. Let me go to the three main thought leaders that I think would be great to platform with me, alongside me. But sadly, we don't do that. We do sit and think about, and then the adverse effect happens, right? Because all that hard work is undone. Because then you have people who find this stuff frustrating and call people lefty wokies and all the rest of it,
Hmm.
who then look at it and go, "Oh, wow, why have they cast Snow White as this, and why have they cast?" Like, it becomes an argument that should never have happened in the first place.
Too much, you end up with too much discussion over the wrong things, don't you? Rather than
That's it.
just having inclusion and accepting that everyone's got a role and a part to play. And you mentioned your children earlier and their experiences of having different coloured skin or how they perceive themselves. And I know last time we were talking about, I think for the first time ever in working history, we will have the most amount of intergenerational working
Yes.
from a perspective of we're getting older as a human race, so we're living longer, we'll have to work for longer. We've obviously got new generations coming into the workforce, and I wonder what are your observations about how organizations are handling that? Are there any hints and tips, or do we just carry on as we have been? What do you think?
No, no. I think there needs to be a fundamental shift in mindset. I
Yeah.
think we all had this. I call it the millennial awakening, right? During the COVID period, where it was, hang on a minute, people around me are being let go out of their jobs just so that the business can remain open. So I'm not as valuable as I once thought I was. People have witnessed the cost of living increasing rapidly, the ability to not be able to buy a house. There's people that are of my generation and my cohort that unless you bought a house at the right sort of time, they're not going to get on the housing ladder either. And then we look to the generation coming in, so Gen Z, and we call them lazy, and we brand them uninterested in work. And I just think that's ridiculous, or really sort of short-sighted, because these guys have grown up in a very different world to what we grew up in. Our adult minds have grown up in this changing environment, right? Where we've gone from no social media to social media everywhere. We've gone from celebrities being idolized to influencers being idolized, and we've witnessed that change. This generation haven't. They don't know who David Beckham was. Do you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't care about anything that we cared about. They don't want to join the corporate ladder and be part of the family. They don't care about that. Well, they care about social purpose. They care about their own micro economy of people around them. That's what they care about. And when we're sitting there motivating them with the same carrot and stick that motivated us, and then
Mm.
expecting different results, Einstein calls that insanity, right? But for some reason, we're not the problem, they are. And the generations above us, the Gen Xers and the Boomers, consider it to be, oh, it's a lost generation. Well, every generation thinks that they were the best ones, right?
Yes.
You've got to. I think we've just, as a society, seem to have lost the ability to critically think for ourselves. And are looking for this magic wand fix, whereas actually the answer is right in front of us. What are you expecting these guys to do? Why would they be motivated by working for your business? What does your business do that's going to give them a sense of achievement or social purpose? Because that's all they've got. They can't. There's no ambition to buy a house because, well, if I buy a house, I'm trapped in a mortgage for however many years. And I've seen my parents do that, and my parents be miserable their entire lives, work their entire lives to get to the end of it, and then to be told, "Well, here's a small check for all your hard work for you to barely survive on."
Mm.
You, this generation have seen all of this, and they've gone, "Nah, this isn't the one. We don't want to do this."
It's
Yet
interesting.
we,
Sorry, Karen.
no, 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 yet we brand them lazy. You know.
Yes. And I find at the moment there's a lot in the press. A lot of organizations are trying to get people back into the office. And I have really mixed views about this. I I do think we've lost something. I think we've lost a little bit of human connection. So I'm a big advocate for hybrid working and for online, and there's lots and lots of benefits. However, I absolutely do not agree with the whole just come back in the office just because I want you to. And I wonder what your take is. A lot of the youngsters started their job as hybrid working. They don't know
Yeah, yeah,
any
they don't know
different.
any
How
different,
how
right?
do we, does it matter? I guess is one question. And how do we articulate that human connection? How do we recreate that in
Yeah.
the way that perhaps you and I had when we started work, that building friendships, getting to know the way things are done around here, culture?
It's a funny one, right? In the this answer, this is sort of, I'll just come back to the office. This is how I learn. Oh, hey, that's great. But if you sit down and actually talk to a generation of these youngsters, we grew up in a time where I kept myself, you kept in touch, and you had friends who either lived on your street or went to the same school as you, right?
Yeah.
That was your friendship circle. These guys grow up in a world where they can have friends all over the world and they keep in contact with them constantly all over the world, right? Because they find people who find things as interesting as they do, or hobbies, or whatever it might be, some sort of connection. They're able to make connections online. They're able to drive culture online and remotely. They're able to learn things very, very quickly without side by side coaching and somebody in their ear and do it like this and don't do it like that. Just because we weren't able to doesn't mean they can't. So I don't think the answer is get them all back in the office. I think the answer is learn to do it properly yourself. We're in a different world. Well, you're able to now motivate members of staff or drive cultural change. You're able to now train new starters remotely using technology and AI, but you're refusing to.
Hmm.
So we're now that generation that are like, oh no, we've always done it this way and it needs to stay. The ones we used to moan about when we
Yeah.
first came into the workforce.
Hmm.
But now we're the ones sitting there going, no, 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 they don't know what it's like. Oh, they don't know how their bread's buttered. It's moronic, really.
So
I
tell me your views on person to person contact then, because I know you have. Tell us a bit about your curry club. I know you have your
yeah,
curry
yeah,
club,
yeah.
don't you? That is about physically getting in the same space. There's a lot of research as well about eating together and how that builds bonds and relationships. How do we fit that human connection in with all the advances in technology that you just described?
Look, people need people, right? Social interaction and so on and so forth. What people don't need is to constantly be thinking about work. So Recruitment Curry Club was a really simple concept. Owning a business is tough. Being a solopreneur is even tougher. It's a difficult market out there. How about we create a safe place where there's no sales chat? We're not there to try and, it's not a networking night where you get to change business cards and all that crap.
Hmm.
I'm finding it tough. How are you finding it? I'm really struggling with this. How are you getting on with that? I've actually noticed that if you do this, this, and this, the success rate's really high. I wanted to share that with like-minded people. And so we started off as a concept back in late November last year, and it's grown exponentially. We've run 7 events: Birmingham, London, Manchester, Reading is coming up, Glasgow is coming up. We've got Bristol, Leeds, loads and loads of people wanting to jump on board with this concept because people need human interaction. We're not saying that people don't need human interaction. What I'm saying is people don't need to be in a bloody office to
Yeah.
get that human interaction. So
Hmm.
again, if I'm a business owner and I'm sitting there going, I need to drive cultural change. Well, here's an idea. Why don't you take them out for a food and drink and actually ask them how they're really doing? Why don't you do that? That wouldn't kill you. That will drive cultural change. That will allow people to go, actually, do you know what? I really like Liz, and now I feel comfortable enough to message her and say, Liz, I'm really struggling with this thing, with this particular task. Can you please help me? And Liz is more inclined to want to help because It's not something that she's been directed to do as a leader, team leader, manager, or whatever. It's something that she wants to do because she's made a connection with this person. This is the alternative thinking that I'm talking about, right? The critical thinking where because something doesn't work anymore, you don't just go, no, 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 we need to still do it. We need to look at it and go, right, well, what does work? And let's try something different. And try
Hmm.
something different is scary and it is unusual and it sometimes doesn't fit with the norm, but do it anyway. What's the worst that'll happen, right?
You can stop and change and re do a reiteration, can't you?
Exactly.
Something doesn't work. You sit down afterwards and go, well, that didn't work. Should we try
Yeah.
something different next time?
And this is it. This fear of failure is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
If the last 5 years haven't taught people that failure is okay, failure is not fatal, success isn't final. Just because you had one good year doesn't mean you're going to have a good year the next year. And
Hmm.
in the same light, failure is not fatal. So you do something that didn't work, try something different. You can't keep reverting back to the old way, the old way. It
Yeah.
used to work when we were all in the office, so it will continue to work. Do you know how many, do you know how much talent you miss out on by having such a closed mentality?
Mm.
I wish I knew this when I ran my recruitment agency. Well, I had a recruitment business that was in Coventry, and we hired people within a 5 mile radius of where our office was because my business partner was old school and wanted everyone in the office. We had people who wanted to come and work for us that lived up in Manchester and Leeds, and it was no, no, I'm not having anyone remote working. That business eventually failed. So the proof's in the pudding. I know some very successful businesses within the recruitment space who are completely remote and are flying and have a good culture
Yeah.
and have camaraderie and have got all those things right. So it's not impossible.
Brilliant. Tell us, so I'm going to pick your brains on your
Mm.
podcast. You've got a very successful podcast. And when you
Indeed.
and I met and you told me about your podcast, I was like, wow, I have just started a podcast. Wouldn't it be hilarious to get you on my podcast to teach me how to do a great podcast? So fire away, Nitin, tell me what makes a good podcast?
What makes a good podcast? Wow. Oh, look, first of all, you got to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it, right? You spend a lot of your time with people, whether it's virtually or side by side in your studio. You spend a lot of time with people. You've got to enjoy that time you spend with them because if you're not enjoying it, people who are watching are gonna cotton onto that too very quickly. I think it's less. There's the marketing and social side of it where you've things like SEO optimization and making sure it's everywhere where people need it to be and so on and so forth. So there's the technical side, but more importantly, I think it's more about if you enjoy it and it's something you would listen to, then other people will because you're not unique. We all like to think we are, but that we're not, right? There's billions of people in the world and they will find you. It's that. And don't chase the vanity metrics. Do you know, I have a theory on this in that people tend to listen to podcasts in their own personal time, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the sort of thing that you're going to do at work. There's no way your boss is going to let you sit and listen to podcasts. So they're going to do it in their own time, whether they're commuting or downtime, whatever. Now, even if that's 5 people that week that have listened to your podcast, that's 5 people who have invited you into their personal life to listen to what you and your guest have got to say. That's a success. Celebrate that.
Mm.
Don't compare yourself to other established podcasts or other established kind of competitors, so to speak. That's a fool's game. It's got to be if it's engaging and fun for you, it'll be engaging and fun for somebody, and that's what you need is that somebody to listen and go, this is great, because those people will tell others.
Thank you. And you're right. I listen to podcasts on my dog walk, and therefore most of the criteria of which podcast I'm going to listen to is the length of time it takes me to walk the
Yeah, yeah,
dog
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
around
it.
the field.
Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you this: if somebody rang you unsolicitedly, that's easy for me to say, while you're on that dog walk and started to talk to you about a new car that a deal that they've got, or a
Mhm.
car insurance offer the ring that they've got, would you take the time to listen to them, or would you just button them,
Mhm.
right? And if so, people aren't buttoning you, and the people are listening to what you've got to say, you're doing something right. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Consistency. If you look at the stats and stuff, most podcasts don't make it past 20 episodes.
Okay.
If you make it past your 25th episode, you're already in the top 50% of podcasts that have existed since the launch of them. If you make it to your 100th episode, you're in the top 5%.
Right then, I'll speak to you on episode 101. You're
Absolutely.
back.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing all your
That's all right.
knowledge
Thank
today,
you.
Nitin. It's been really great talking to you. I always like to finish off. So, part of my mission is about disrupting the system. I think we spend far too long trying to change individuals to fit in. I think it's about time we started disrupting the system, which we've spoken about quite a few times on our chat today. So, I guess what would your ask be of listeners? What would your suggestion be for corporates in terms of how do we disrupt the system?
It's a good question. How do we do it? Well, don't give up. Keep pushing. Setbacks are going to happen. You might have the best idea in the world and it will get shot down. That doesn't mean it's a bad idea. I have a saying that I live my life by, which is that you could be the sweetest peach on the tree, but not everyone likes peaches.
Mm,
And so just have that in mind, right? If you don't feel like the place you are is ready to drive that change that you want to see, go, find that place because it's out there. There's no shortage of places to work. There's no shortage of businesses out there. Go and find your tribe.
excellent. Thank you so much.
That's all right.
I'll
No,
see
thank
you
you.
on 101.
Yes.
Take care. Thank you.
See you soon. Ta-ra.